Do you feel like your mind's a little foggy? Following a car accident, does it feel like you can't think straight? You find yourself walking into rooms and having no clue why you walked in there to begin with. You're staring at your computer and you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, or you're reading a paragraph over, over, over again, and nothing seems to stick. You just feel spacey, groggy, not quite there. Now, you don't need me to tell you that's not good, but when you went to your doctor, maybe they did a CT or some basic neurological tests and everything came back normal. He says you probably just have a minor concussion, it's nothing to worry about. Just take some rest, don't stress your brain, and it should go away on its own. But that was a month ago, and it still feels like you can't think your way out of a cardboard box. That's why today I want to explain to you why brain fog is typically more of a neck problem than it is a brain problem. We're going to go over proprioceptive overload, what that means and why it's putting you in this fog, adding extra stress to your brain's ability to comprehend difficult tasks. And then as an extra bonus, I'm going to give you a tiny exercise you can do right now to establish if this actually is a concussion or if your neck really is the reason you can't think straight. Let's start off by talking about Mark. So Mark is a software engineer, and he was in a low-speed car accident, about 15-20 miles an hour. Not a big deal on the surface, so he went about his business. He was a little bit sore, but nothing that he thought he needed to go to the hospital for or even get it checked out. But 2 weeks following his accident, he realized he really couldn't code. He would stare at his computer and his thoughts just weren't coming out smoothly. He was irritable, exhausted, and felt like he was losing his memory. Mark made a smart decision, and he went to a concussion specialist. They told him to avoid mentally strenuous activities, to stay in a dark room, and relax, which is great advice, but after a month, nothing had changed. After a month of doing what he was told to do, Mark came to my office. And we both sort of figured that if a month of doing what he was supposed to do for a concussion wasn't working, then it probably wasn't a concussion. So I did what I'm supposed to do as a chiropractor, and I looked at his cervical spine. It didn't take a whole lot of feeling around, but we were able to establish that his C1 and C2 vertebrae were slightly misaligned. And this is great news for everybody because it means there's not a fracture, there's not a concussion, there's really not a brain injury, there's just an input injury. The same way you really can't think straight when there's a lot of noise going on, either from music or traffic, your brain really has a hard time establishing what it's supposed to focus on when the signals from your neck are coming in full of static. But again, this is great news for Mark because it's a simple fix. Once we're able to remove that mechanical static from his neck, his symptoms cleared up within 2 days. 2 days! And this is one of the frustrating things about my job. It takes forever for people to come here when you can get a resolution of your symptoms within a couple of hours. But if this sounds like you, then the best thing that you need to understand is your internal GPS. Now, I don't think this is going to come as a big shock to anybody, but the primary goal of your brain is to keep you alive. And one of the fun ways it does this is by keeping tabs of where you actually are in space. And it has 3 really good ways of doing that: your eyes, your inner ear, and the mechanoreceptors in the base of your skull and the top of your neck. Fun fact, these nerves and muscles are responsible for most of the data that your brain uses to establish balance and orientation as you're walking through your environment. But following a whiplash injury, these tiny receptors get stretched and damaged. This is a lot like having a GPS that continues to recalculate where you are on the road. If you're old enough to remember the good old days of Garmin, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or if you're like me and for some reason you use Apple Maps and it keeps putting you in a lake 5 miles away from where you are. Also, if you're like me, you can see where this would become very stressful and irritating for your brain to constantly need to reestablish where it thinks you are in space. And even though it doesn't seem like much to you, because it's spending all that extra energy trying to decipher exactly what your neck is telling it, it has a lot less bandwidth for critical thinking. Things like memory, focus, emotional regulation, remembering your name, and this is what is commonly referred to as cervicocerebral syndrome. That brain fog you feel is really just your brain's CPU getting overwhelmed from all the extra crud coming in from your neck. Now we're going to play a little game to see if your neck is the source of your brain fog. This is the gaze stabilization test. Pretty straightforward and not a whole bunch of fun like a normal game, but what I want you to do is hold out your thumb or pick a point that you can look at the wall and then focus on one part of your thumb or that point, picking your fingernail in this case. All you're going to do is keep your eyes locked to that point and turn your head slowly 30 degrees to the left and then back to center, 30 degrees to the right, and back to center. And what we're looking to see is if you notice any increases in dizziness, if you start noticing like that brain fog is starting to get worse. You might even start to notice like there's a pressure buildup behind your eyes. And if any of these things do happen to you, that is a positive test that your vestibulo-ocular reflex, which is going to be that neurological connection between your eyes, your inner ears, and the muscles at the top of your neck, did get messed up. And what that means is that your eyes are struggling to coordinate movement with your neck movement. And again, good news, bad news, because it means two things. One, this isn't a concussion. It's not a brain issue, and that's fine. You don't need to rest, but you do need to recalibrate those nerves. Brain fog is not a good time for anybody because there's nothing fun about feeling like you have early onset dementia. The good news is, though, if the cause is mechanical, then the solution is also mechanical. Now, if that eye tracking exercise was not a fun time for you, or if that brain fog is your day-to-day normal routine at this point, go ahead and pop down into the description where I have a free neurological clarity quiz. It's a 2-minute quiz to kind of help you distinguish between if you have a concussion or if this brain fog is just a cervical-driven brain fog. But if you've already taken that month off trying to rest because you thought it was a concussion and you're still not getting anywhere and you're looking to do that recalibration, I have a specific neurological reset module in the Whiplash recovery blueprint that is also down in the description. We use targeted gaze stabilization and suboccipital muscle releases to help quiet that static in the signal between your neck and your eyes. Check those both out, get out of the fog, get back to remembering your name again, and get back to your normal life. I'm Dr. Beck, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.